Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Marketing and Leadership Series with Kevin and Craig, where we add value to people's lives, happening every Thursday on ebizradio.com. You can catch the Lunchtime Series on all major podcast channels, and as per usual, communication and marketing expert co-host Craig Paisley. That's quite a tongue twister, if I have to say that.
It is, Kevin. Thanks. Yeah, I think the double barrel in itself is a challenge. I'm good, Kevin. Thanks. Yeah. Gosh, here we are a week after our 50th celebration, but in a really weird place in the world, and quite dumbstruck by the evil Russian invasion on Ukraine. So I think before we get diving into the show, it's really for us to extend our thoughts to every single person out there impacted on by the heinous crime. And Kevin, I really do hope that there's a peaceful resolution very, very soon.
Yeah, Craig. A week ago we were celebrating our 50th show, and it's quite a milestone to be able to do like 50 shows. And but here we are a week later, and this invasion on Ukraine. And I was driving through when I heard that this was happening. I was in the traffic, and I was like, my TikTok was on, but it was raining, so we were literally standing still in the rain. So I put TikTok on, and people started doing live some streaming from the Ukraine, listening to the sirens, and crying on the video. And I eventually got so emotional, I sat there crying in the car with this person crying on their video, just listening to the fear, and like you could hear like bomb shells going off at the back, and it was just like horrible. So for me, this it's quite the challenge to be able to do a show and kind of go, let's be out there,
be rah-rah,
be rah-rah and keep the vibe up. Yet there's people like literally like they don't even have a house to go to today because they've half of them have left somewhere and gone somewhere in fear of just being alive. And everything about it is just it upsets me, and I'm not coping with it. It doesn't sit well with me at all.
Yeah, war is horrible. It really is. But you mentioned TikTok. The incredible thing is how technology is bringing the reality of this negativity and evilness to bear, and on the back of that, it really has united so many people around the world in a way that previous wars just didn't really have the opportunity to do.
But also, to see Switzerland and Finland jump on the same bandwagon, kind of say, no guys, this is not okay. You can't just invade countries. We see that there are certain countries who are allied, like South Africa, with the Russians, and kind of sitting on the fence, and kind of going, no, we don't want really going to get involved here. China also having the same kind of response, but yet the whole of Europe kind of going, this is not okay. And it just does go to show that more people in the world want to live a more peaceful life than have to go through this nonsense, because it's crazy. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
But Craig, on with the show. Going back to last week's conversation, I have to tell you that I was quite inspired in listening to Connie's when she shared some of her experience and encountered her journey to launching the Connie Wine brand and the range of wines. With this in mind, are you able to share the key takeaway from the points that we had on the discussion, just so we could wrap it up for our listeners from last week?
Absolutely, Kevin. Yeah. So just to set some context again for our listeners, we were joined last week on the show by Connie Madihe, founder and managing owner of Connie Wines. And as you mentioned, Kevin, Connie shared some amazing insights into her journey from when she left a really good job in the corporate HR world and ventured off into uncharted territory to launch one of the first Black woman-owned wine businesses in South Africa. So I'd like to share the following as the takeaway points from our conversation with Connie. Number one, when you have an idea and want to step out into the world as an entrepreneur, don't let the idea get lost in the meddling and so-called advice from others. And Connie really focused on the fact that, she felt that at one point she almost lost her idea because those around her were pushing her away from it or in a totally different direction. So yes, obviously there are many ideas that are just not practical or feasible or logical, and these may never work. So do take note from other people's inputs and guidance, but don't let them kill your idea before you've really had the chance to interrogate it from every single angle. And then once you've identified and established that it is a workable idea, be clear on the brand and what it needs to do, say, and deliver. And most importantly, think deeply about the purpose, what purpose the brand has, and how it will benefit people and planet. No matter how tough the journey may be, don't be afraid to ask for help or guidance. Whether in the form of financial support, which you heard so much about already from the previous entrepreneurs we've had on the show, or just how to launch a brand or how to build a comprehensive business plan. Asking for help, importantly, does not denote weakness. Just show up, because if you're not present, you will not succeed. And by this, I don't mean just sit in the background and always be there, but just thinking about what it'd be like to become an entrepreneur. Take a bold step, lean in and commit to it. Keep pushing, take those small steps. Don't get distracted, stay focused, and just keep shuffling and moving forward. And lastly, start by marketing your business through the free-to-use social media channels. Connie did well in this regard. Leverage LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And again, if you don't have the capital to create elaborate advertising, go online. Learn how to maximize exposure through these platforms. There's a lot of great tutorials teaching folk how to use the platforms for maximum effect. And then get your friends and followers to share your brand and content as far and wide as possible.
Yeah. Greg, and you're right. I mean, I've definitely come to understand the power of social media in building my brand. And I did have a strange moment the other day when someone, phoned me to work with me. And started discussing work, and eventually said to me, well, can you send me a CV? So I said to her, no, I can't send you a CV. So she was like quite offended. She was like, why can't you send me a CV? I said, have you Googled me? And she said, no. So I'm like, well, perhaps you should. And, I have, it always feels like I have a chip on my shoulder, and it's not. The point is, I work incredibly hard for people to understand what I do and putting it out there and topics I want to discuss and, programs that we deliver. And, and social media can do that for you, but, you have to actively, I'm actively, as we're talking, I have a camera on rolling in the background and I want to do like a behind the scenes moment with Kevin and Greg on the screen. So I got to do a lot of editing and just make a little video of, what it looks like. But essentially, you have to be involved. And social media can do so much for your brand. So, and it's true, share that with people, get it out there, make the effort, show up. All the advice that she's given, has sort of resonated and across the board with all the entrepreneurs that we've had on the show as well. But Craig, what are we chatting about today?
Yeah, Kevin, I mentioned last week that brick and mortar retail is not dead post-COVID pandemic. So I'm just going to cover some points on the resurgence of traditional brick and mortar retail, some points on what's driving this, and then just cover a few facts from the retail sector globally. That's where we're headed today.
Fantastic. Yeah. I do, and I'm interested in what you have to what you have to share today, because I think, to a large degree, people do want the convenience of like having a shop in the palm of your hand. But I think it's far long gone that people actually want to go outside and want to be in a store and want to go and see a store and, go and see the fabric and touch the fabric and be part of the process. I don't think we're just going to move away from it quickly.
Two very good points you make there. One is the word convenience, and we'll get onto that. And the second one is that tactile engagement. You've definitely hit some two good points. So, but let's start by sharing some context of a few key insights into the industry. So, according to a study by MSCI conducted on behalf of the South African Council of Shopping Centres, it was conducted in 2018. The South African retail market was then estimated at around 23.4 million square meters of gross lettable area across, take this, 1,959 shopping centers, Kevin. South Africa ranked 8th position amongst 43 countries forming part of that survey, and they were just behind Australia and France. And not surprisingly, I should say, the top 3 countries in terms of shopping center supply was USA, China, and Canada. Those 3 combined 77% of total gross lettable square meterage. Substantial.
Wow.
Here's another good
I mean,
point.
just on that.
Yes.
So on that point, like, can you imagine if all of them were responsible and had solar paneling for all of the electricity they used?
Yeah, Kevin, if not just solar, if they were then collecting water, recycling, just, a whole host of environmentally conscious decision making, put some really strong policies in place around, minimizing plastic from the stores, in the malls, etc., etc. So yeah, as micro economies, the opportunity to start implementing significant change should really begin in those environments. And I like that point. I do.
Yeah.
South Africa represents 88% of the available retail space on the continent, Kevin. So yeah, taking into account the size of the continent and the number of countries on the continent, this really does demonstrate the significance of the South African economy to the continent. Referencing some figures reported on propertywheel.co.za as posted on the 1st of March this year, we clearly learn the bricks and mortar retail is not dead, as Sandton City improved their occupancy from 97.9% to 98.93% coming into 2021. The same article goes on to note this, take note of this. Sandton City grew its annual turnover by 31.3% from 2019 to 2020, coming through that really intense phase of the pandemic, generating its highest ever annual turnover of about 7.4 billion rand. At a global level,
so I just think that's like really crazy. Like especially in Sandton City, for it to have grown, where we all heard how offices were like emptied and like people weren't even using office or giving up office space, and like nobody wants to go back there, and for them to have grown like this, there's something that I don't know here.
That's again a really good point you make there, because Sandton City is in the heart of the Golden Mile on the continent, and it really is serviced by predominantly the best corporate offices in on the continent, and with most of those sitting at less than 50% occupancy, you would question those statistics. But again, coming out of the pandemic and picking up on one of the points you made earlier, is there is this need for people to just get back into those physical environments of engagement and tactile shopping experience. And I think that contributed a lot to it. And remember, Sandton City also is quite an epicenter of African-based international travel. So whilst Africa was unlocking from a travel point of view, I think there's probably a great percentage of that could be attributed to visitors coming in from the continent into that shopping zone as well. But at a global level, Kevin, retail store closures in the USA were down 65% in January this year compared with the same period last year. And the supply of retail gross leasable area fell 59% in Q4 of 2021 versus a year prior. So not only were store closures down, but there was a significant uptake in the rental of retail space, Kevin. But the most important point here for me is that 93% of retailers expect consumers to increase the use of mobile devices in store. Therefore, mobile in store becoming a major driver of anybody's retail strategy.
Yeah. So, Craig, purely on the basis of significantly less store closures in the USA, we can sense that traditional retail is making a comeback. Yeah. And with this in mind, what are some of the factors driving the resurgence in a traditional brick and mortar retail space? So,
yeah, Kevin. So while I'll address the question in more detail as we go on, but I really think there's one simple fact: people being isolated and restricted from in-store shopping for so long during the pandemic is definitely one of the key reasons why we're seeing that resurgence, but also plus the fact that people genuinely feel more secure and safer from the virus, and therefore it's much easier for them to start going back into malls and retail stores. This emphasized in the opening paragraph from an article titled "The Return to Brick and Mortar in 2022," written by Muralai Neti on Jan 29 this year and published on entrepreneur.com. The article states the following: with the lessened restrictions and more consumers ready to do in-person shopping, retailers must ask themselves what the future holds for their businesses in 2022, and what strategies must they employ to ensure their customers want to make those in-store purchases. And from the various articles, there's one key strategy that stands out for retailers in getting this right, Kevin, and that is to ensure the adherence to an omni-channel strategy. And for listeners, the simplest definition of this is buy online and go to store to collect it. But here's where the great opportunity exists for retailers to lure those shoppers into further purchases, and that genuinely is a reality. Yeah, and as we know, Kevin, the word you used earlier on, online shopping makes for a more convenient, easier shopping experience, and it definitely increases reach for retailers. But the important question is how to make that meaningful connection with the shopping through a digital screen. Where else? No better place than within the retail store. So retail's goal needs to be to help customers complete a sale, combining both the online and the physical experiences in the perfect way to now start transitioning more and more people back into bricks and mortar. But absolutely understanding that they cannot leave behind the lessons learned from this great digitization that we experienced during the pandemic. Key for the strategy.
Craig, I have a plan. If any of the retailers are listening, it's like you could get people to go to store and say, okay, if you come to the store and you type in this wonderful magic code on this bar that you find in the store, you can get a 10% discount.
Absolutely.
That there is drive people to actually come to the store.
That's exactly it, Kevin. So with this incredible understanding of data, all really just enhanced and fine-tuned during the pandemic, and really getting to understand shoppers' online behavior, those brands can lure those folk into their stores and actually have very purposed message delivery within the store relative to the key categories that they were buying online, and literally in a true geolocated ring-fenced environment, you can ping and drop a message to that individual's mobile device in store and reach out, put it in the basket, and be rewarded for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, but Craig, I mean, surely e-commerce still accounts for the majority of the retail since the pandemic started.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, there definitely was a moment where e-commerce, online retail, was the predominant and most influential sales channel. But as the pandemic settled, we're definitely seeing something different materialize here, and that's touched on in another article I came across on entrepreneur.com. This one was published in February this year, written by Bobby Mahamat, and it's titled 5 Reasons to be Bullish on Brick and Mortar in 2022. The article opens with the following statement. The year 2020 was supposed to be brick and mortar's death knell, but it turned out to be the catalyst for its evolution and strength. Initial shocks to the retail sector and many unfortunate closures through 2020 and 2021 gave way to serious forward momentum. Moody's, expecting retail to show steady growth through 2022, is bullish on brick and mortar, and for good reason. The article covers many of the same points that I picked up in the first one, but there's one clear fact, Kevin, that while e-commerce provides unrivaled convenience, the word you referenced earlier, there's no experience like an in-store experience. And the fact remains that no brand experience is as immersive or impactful as a trip through a physical retail store. So rather than just providing convenience as e-commerce does, or a once-off emotional response like great advertising and digital advertising presents, brick and mortar stores still definitely present the opportunity for more immersive experiences for brands. And this is where the reality check kicks in, Kevin, because we know that e-commerce market share has steadily risen through the 2000s, but surprising to me, It only accounts for 13% of retail sales in Q3 of 2021 in the USA. And I expected that to be much, much higher. But I don't know about you, Kevin. I want to go in store. I want to touch, I want to see, try on, feel, and experience the retail environment, plus the products I'm interested in buying. And then when I do buy online, it's inevitably on the back of being in a retail store and having engaged in the physicality of understanding that that is the product that I'm really after.
Yeah, I mean, I have two sides to this. Um, I don't like being around a lot of people, so I get quite flustered, and especially when there's just busyness happening, it drives me insane. But when there's no one in store, I absolutely love doing like window shopping and like going to look at stuff, or absolutely. And I think what's interesting about it is again, for me, the human behavior factor. It's as humans, you can put us in very many very difficult situations, but they are significant. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Significant little points that sort of come out every time that you see that we are social by nature. We are connected in such a way that we can't be just solely on our by ourselves the whole time. There's some kind of human engagement that constantly needs to happen. We're not built to just be alone or be on camera. We're not built like that.
Yep.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, and the reality here is that shopping centers become an extension of the community. It becomes a public space to engage in. The big centers are all designed around theme. They're primary destination go-to environments with really great experiences. So yeah, the opportunity to engage physically in a collective environment that serves multiple purposes. Great themed malls. But here's another interesting one, because the article references the concept of immediacy. So whilst we had convenience in the digital world, we've got the concept of immediacy in the physical in-store shopping environment. And that's something that online shopping can't deliver against, irrespective of the speed at which deliveries can happen, Kevin, and in which you can get out and do a collection in store. So the immediacy of seeing a product, reaching out, putting it in the basket, and having made that decision in real time is one key aspect that physical in-store physical presence has. So another point that stands out there, Kevin, is something that we've touched on in one of our previous conversations, and that's the importance of store assistants and associates, because the store associates who really are living the brand are key components in converting customers and building loyalty for that particular brand. And they really are a vitally important part of the omni-channel experience when moving from the digital to in-store, to ensure that the fall-off doesn't happen in store. You've got that physical human interface who, again, with the right PDA device, with the right technology in the hand, understands who you are as a consumer and is able to help you through that journey, even if it's in a digital-led environment within the physical retail store. But there's a lovely paragraph that really encapsulates it in that particular article, where it states that there are few assets as powerful as an engaging salesperson. A salesperson pitch can be different between a customer purchasing a significant item or leaving the store. Can be the difference between a customer purchasing a significant item or leaving the store empty-handed. And this potential influence is the one reason why brick and mortar stores remain so important. The human element in retail matters a lot. Salespeople have been called the cornerstone of capitalism. Studies explain how the dynamic salesperson processes a number of crucial decisions as they engage on a prospective buyer. When to talk to, when to be quiet, when to push, and when to draw back are decisions that even the most sophisticated e-com platform can't process or execute, Kevin.
Correct. I mean, that's so true. I think, and so many stores get this wrong, Yeah, you get the stores where people simply ignore, until you actually go and find someone to speak to and say, hi, can you please help me? Then you get the extreme where stores are really, they bombard you, and you have three of them coming to you at once and like, hello, how are you? Can we help you with anything? like, which is also not useful, because I'm like, I just arrived. Can I just look maybe, you know? But I do think that engagement is so important. And again, it comes down to how well do you train your staff around, soft skills and social skills and selling skills, because it's
Yes.
nuances. There's nuances when, if like you go to an expert restaurant, for example, if you go to a really nice 5-star restaurant, if you raise your head, there's always a waiter who knows that this person's looked up and may want your attention. And within
Yeah.
seconds, they're there doing something. They're always filling your glass. They're always available, right? There's nuances that need to be picked up. And I think in retail stores don't get this right at all. You could become a 5-star retail store, and some of them are, and some of them do. But there's nuances that I think people get wrong all the time, which is so annoying I've left stores because of either not being helped or being bombarded by people. Like, I'm like, no, people are irritating. Let me just leave. So
I've done exactly the same. Yeah, quite right. Because there's the two extremes where and it's predominantly in the mass retail. And mass retail doesn't mean cheap and bad experience. Mass retail just means it appeals to a larger portion of the populace than the exclusive Louis Vuitton or Dior stores. And it's inevitably in those environments where this sensitivity of understanding the consumer engagement process is missing. Quite right on that, Kevin.
yeah. Great. So I get the importance of the omni-channel strategy and the need to combine digital and physical retail. But with all of that understood, will the growth of physical retail continue, or will it level once the novelty of being out of home has worn off?
Yeah, a good question. But there are 3 or 4 facts from a great emarketintelligence.com article that I came across, titled "Spotlight on Total Global Retail: Brick and Mortar Returns with Vengeance." It was written by Ethan Kramer Flood on the 3rd of Feb this year, and it answers your question quite succinctly. In-store sales rebounded by 8.2% last year to 21.094 trillion, more than was spent in 2019. Pent-up demand from in-person shoppers accelerated recovery by 2 full years, Kevin. So, yeah, we've seen this great trajectory, so the potential is that it settles, but take note. This quick transition back to stores did not constrain shoppers from matching our e-commerce growth expectations, and their wallets were definitely wide open in 2021. But the projection is that brick and mortar will continue to grow between 2.6 and 3.4% for the remainder of the forecast from the e-market inside, and that's well into past 2025. So at least the next 3 years, we're going to see this compound growth year on year. And brick and mortar will see more new spending this year than e-commerce, sitting at 702.17 billion versus 603.68 billion the year before. So despite its slow growth rate, retail is definitely shooting the lights out. And it goes without saying that physical retail is here to stay, unless it's totally usurped by shopping in the metaverse.
Yeah, and I suppose that like I mentioned, it's it depends on the person. If you like shopping, if you like that kind of thing, you're gonna go have a coffee and walk about and buying, and you have that whole experience that goes with it. Then that will definitely appeal. To me, it doesn't appeal to me. Like, I don't want to rush back to the stores.
Now, interestingly for me, just on that emarketintelligence.com article, really great source of sound bites of valuable information, eMarketer. It's worth looking at some time. The Middle East Africa region is positioned. The retail sales growth is projected at about 16.1% from 2020 to 22. Yeah, so coming out of the end of this year, theoretically over the last 2 years, we would have seen a growth of 16.1%. That is substantial, Kevin. When North America was projected at 2.5 and Western Europe at 2.6%, the continent is definitely shooting the lights out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even the fact that we South Africa has got such a high stat on just retail itself. It's quite amazing. So as we end the show today, Craig, what are the wrap up points for today's discussion?
Yeah, Kevin, just some simple. It's a topic that doesn't need to be complex to succeed in. So just a few simple points to remember. Shoppers are always looking for value, and a memorable experience just over product and price alone is key. Value and memorable experience over just product and price. Brick and mortar is more dynamic than ever, and it's just exciting to see the apps and other layers of digital experiences that really come in and complement the in-store experience. Physical locations are uniquely positioned to deliver far more than online product fulfillment. And many consumers will seek the physical experience and human connection after this prolonged period of lockdown, and it's going to continue. The pandemic made people appreciate public spaces more. In fact, I touched on the beginning of this earlier, is that malls now have opportunity to capitalize on the shift and become those new community centers. And as the pandemic underlined the need for every store to compete successfully online, many retailers now need to adopt the digital first approach, but in their physical stores, and just use those physical spaces for exclusive offerings to complement the digital experience. But I want to end by reading a paragraph from the article. The pandemic destroyed brick and mortar. Now it's bringing stores back. It was published by Barry Fisk on April 22, 2021, and it was found on digitalcommerce360.com. The paragraph goes on to state this. Thanks to the pandemic, customers now have a vastly different experience and expectations. After a year of shopping online, customers expect retailers to know what they like, remember their past purchase, and allow them to browse and virtually try on an endless aisle of merchandise. If your brick and mortar store doesn't have or behave like your website, shoppers will go someplace else. If your brick and mortar store doesn't behave like your website, shoppers will go somewhere else. So it's not the end of brick and mortar. It's really just the rebirth of physical shopping, but the start of an exciting digital powered shopping experience and adventure, Kevin.
And Craig, to wrapping up that sentiment, I think, this is something we spoke about when we started the show, the evolution of what business will start, behaving like, and how we'll do business in the future, and what will that look like. And when we started this discussion, is that I keep going back to it. The jobs that will be created in the futures don't exist yet. We're already seeing how in doing business we've evolved to a point of doing business differently, but similarly. So it's for me, it's fantastic that we can sort of investigate it like this and speak about it, and kind of and sort of see it happen in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. In the 50 shows, we weren't talking about metaverse retail, 50 shows again. It hadn't even come into our spectrum of thinking. And, yes. Here we 2 shows ago, we really got to understand the importance and power of the metaverse, particularly for retail. But we're really reinforcing the fact that the physicality of the real world still has a hugely important role to play in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting times. It's like, imagine what's going to happen in a year from now. I can't wait for the alien. I keep saying I can't wait for the aliens, Craig. When the aliens arrive, I'm like, that's going to be my moment. As we close today's show, what are we going to be discussing next week?
Yeah, Kevin, I want to continue the retail conversation one further linkage by looking at the plethora of payment platforms and trends in the space, especially in light of the fact that Amazon has now implemented their just walk out technology, which allows shoppers to entirely skip the traditional checkout experience and actually leave without placing a single product on the checkout counter. And really, this is another play that we've seen such huge development in technology in the financial services sector and in the payment space. Really some exciting stuff happening out there. Now imagine just wheeling your trolley out the store without having to unpack a single product on the shelf.
Yeah, amazing. I like that kind of shopping. Guys, you can check it out every Thursday at 12 o'clock on ebizradio.com. And that's the Lunchtime Marketing and Leadership series with Kevin and Craig. Craig, thank you so much for chatting, and I will see you next week.
Thank you, Kevin.
Chat to you later. Bye.
Thanks a lot.